Britain has announced that it will give up its last remaining colony in Africa. You may never have heard of the Chagos Islands, but the archipelago in the middle of the Indian Ocean has massive strategic importance and has been at the centre of a diplomatic dispute for decades. Now, Britain has agreed to hand sovereignty of the islands to Mauritius. But Diego Garcia, home to a military base used by the UK and the United States, will remain in British and American hands for the next 99 years. The Chagos Islands have been at the heart of what Britain has called the British Indian Ocean Territory since 1965, when they were detached from Mauritius as part of the former British colony gained independence. Well, in the early 1970s, Britain evicted almost 2,000 residents to make way for an airbase on the largest island, Diego Garcia, which it leased to the United States in 1966. Dr. Yuan Yi Zhu is a professor of international relations and international law. He's also a senior research fellow at Policy Exchange. That's a conservative British think tank. Welcome to DW, Professor. This is all happening, as I understand, because of various legal judgments, including a 29 advisory opinion from the International Court of Justice that the UK's administration of the Chagos Islands was unlawful and that this should stop as soon as possible. But you argue that the UK shouldn't give the islands back.
Yes. So firstly, there is a judgment from the International Court of Justice. However, it is an advisory opinion, meaning that it has no legal force. It is simply the opinion of the judges of the court. So as a matter of law, the UK is under no obligation under international law to hand over the territory to Mauritius.
And why do you believe that it should not?
There are several reasons. Firstly, many, if not most, Chagosians, the inhabitants of the islands who were expelled and their descendants, are against Mauritian sovereignty. Many of them were resettled in Mauritius in the 1960s and 1970s, and they were very badly treated by the Mauritian government. They were the victims of racism, discrimination. They were rehoused in slums, and many of them moved to the UK as a consequence. So firstly, the reason for not handing over the islands to Mauritius is the moral one.
Forgive me for just interrupting there, but having looked into this for a lot of today, lots of Chagosians ended up in the UK because they were essentially deported there. They were rounded up on Diego Garcia at gunpoint and taken off the island and their pets shot. So whilst it may be that there was some local dispute between them and Mauritius, they had no choice but to leave the island. They didn't decide, well, we don't like it here, we'll go. They were taken off by Britain.
And just clarified, they were not resettled in the UK in the first place. They were resettled in Mauritius and in the Seychelles. And yes, the British government resettled them, forcibly expelled them in a way which I think everybody would condemn today. But it remains the fact that the Chagosians were so badly treated in Mauritius by the Mauritian government that many of them chose to move to the UK, the very country which expelled them in the first place. So you just have to ask yourself, how bad were things in Mauritius for them to go to the UK, a country which was the source of all the troubles? So I think the moral case against Mauritian sovereignty is very strong. That's the first reason. The second reason, of course, is that Mauritius chose to give up the islands. In the 1960s, Mauritius sold the islands to the British government in exchange for cash and a defense agreement. And Mauritius now is claiming that actually they were forced to do so, they were forced to sell the islands. Whereas all the evidence that we have, all the historical record shows very clearly that the Mauritian government never considered the Chagos Islands to be really a part of its territory, and that they were very happy to make a quick buck by selling the islands to the UK. And of course now they are getting the islands back, and they're going to be able to collect rent from the US government to host the military base in Diego Garcia.
Talk to us about your particular concerns about Chinese influence in the area.
So Mauritius is not a very big country. It has been the recipient of significant Chinese investment in terms of infrastructure and other economic activities in recent years. Now, I'm not saying that Mauritius is a Chinese proxy, that would be going too far, but I think Mauritius clearly is a very pragmatic country which is willing to strike deals with the highest bidder. And frankly, China may well become, sooner rather than later, the highest bidder in Mauritius. And it is entirely possible that China would want Mauritius, would want to push Mauritius to get rid of the space, which is, after all, located in a place which is very sensitive for China. And so in terms of the security of the US and of the UK and of the Western alliance, it is a mistake to give the islands to a country which for all we know, can be taken over by China politically or economically in the near future.
OK, thanks for talking us through that. Yuan Yi Zhu, a Senior Research Fellow at Policy Exchange. Thank you very much.